We are living in a time where hate has become louder, where words are fueling division, and where fear and violence are entering our streets, schools, homes, and places of worship. Every day, people are being targeted because of their faith, race, culture, or simply because they are different. But we refuse to allow hate to define our future. This series is about more than hate crimes. It is about humanity, healing, understanding, and courageous conversations that bring people together instead of tearing them apart. Featuring faith leaders, community advocates, public officials, survivors, and voices from different backgrounds united in confronting hate and building hope. Because love must speak louder than hate, and our shared humanity must always rise above division. Join us for this powerful new series on the SB Life Institute podcast, Conversations on Hate, Healing, Unity, and Hope. Coming soon.
Peace and love be with all of you, and welcome to another episode of SB Life Institute podcast. And I'm very delighted this morning to say that after nine different episodes, we are coming to the end of this particular series, as we have discussed in the past week about hate crime. And today I'm quite delighted to have no other than the pattern interrupter. And that is Muhammad Imran from England, a close friend of mine who has been working diligently in various aspects of the work. And one, I can say that he has been a life coach and has been doing a lot of community work. We had the honor of having him here on our podcast in various series that we have done. And today I'm honored to have him here with us. And before I continue the discourse with him, I want to say that hate crime really begins with violence, and I want all of you to know that. They often begins with fear, and they also begin with prejudice, misinformation, unresolved emotional pain. While individuals are responsible for their actions, understanding the psychology behind hate does not excuse it. It helps us to prevent it. And today in our discourse, we want to explore what happens in the mind and the heart of someone who actually dehumanizes others because of race, because of religion, because of sexuality, because of identity, or because of any other artificial barriers that people seek to divide others with. And we also want to discuss how our faith community can play a role in this, and in terms of not only faith communities, also mental health professionals, coaches, educators, and families can interrupt that process before hate becomes that particular violence. So here we have someone who is a professional, who's been actively involved in this type of work, and I would like to welcome Imran, my good friend, once again in our episode. Your face is becoming familiar, which makes me very happy on my podcast. And I want to, now is 8 o'clock here. I know you're in the middle of the day in England, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and to have this discourse. What's on your mind, my friend? How is everything?
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته أخي العزيز يا الشيخ يا مولاي. Allah give you barakah Sayyidi, and it's another opportunity, a beautiful opportunity to see your beautiful face, mashallah, and have this conversation with you. And I'm good, alhamdulillah, under all of the circumstances. And you talked about, hate crime, and of course we are in times where across the world there is much that's going on the basis of this type of behavior that's taking place. And you are truly right to say that where it originates from, of course, is from assaults and attacks. That's what happens. But of course, that also originates from somewhere else as well, inshallah. And through this conversation with our beautiful audience, inshallah, in America and around the world, we'll get the opportunity to delve into some of the mindsets of why people do what they do. Sheikh, myself, I've worked in the prison structure now nearly for 20 years. And if there's a person who's had the opportunity to sit and stand and talk and discuss with individuals who exude hate towards others, implement hate towards others, I've had the opportunity to do that. And for someone who's had this done for a number of years and also has been on the receiving end of hate, as I have myself, Sayyidi, I can also speak from a very personal space as well as a victim of this type of action.
And then I know that might not probably been very traumatizing, and you're able to use those moments in terms of advocating for our community, advocating against hate, so to speak, when you have this personal experience, and also your background and your experience that you bring to this work. And I always enjoy having discourses with you. You know, I just want to start off by asking this very important question, because in the previous sessions we spoke about, you know, with other guests about what hate crime is, how it impacts our community, the different patterns in which it presents itself in various communities, the importance of education, and we had like local politicians and so forth that came on. I really want to ask you a very important question, and that is, what happens psychologically when someone begins to see another human being as less than a human? You know, like when someone looks at somebody and say, "Oh, this person is not befitting, you know, to be a human. They have a lot of qualities that does not align to that," and they have this thought process. What happens in a person's mind when they make statements like this, or that thought process is there?
It's very interesting because I want to share something with you. Someone by the name of Gregory Stanton, who is the president, or was the president of Genocide Watch Independent, you know, internationally, and development. He developed these 10 stages of genocide, and of course, which include classification, polarization, civilization, discrimination, and the stage 4 out of the 10 is something called dehumanization. Now, dehumanization is one of the, it is, and dehumanization is one of the most dangerous psychological processes because it strips away empathy. A person no longer sees another as an individual with hopes, fears, or emotions, but just as a label. That's all they see. With stereotypes or as an enemy. Once that happens, acts that would normally will feel morally wrong begin to seem justified, because you have stripped that individual of the entity of humanity. You have taken away from them the key aspect of creating this empathy with them, which is to be a human being. Now, psychologically, ya Sheikh, what we find is that this is known as moral disengagement. That's what this is. People convince themselves that their behavior is acceptable because they believe the other person is somehow less deserving of dignity or compassion.
So
now,
what I'm hearing you know, if you give me a quick minute, what I'm hearing you actually saying, that they create that comfort zone in their minds that, you know, that gives them that push to do this in terms of a justification. Oh, this person is not, you know, is not like me. And that's what they're trying to create, that notion in their mind about, and that thought process that pushes them to behave in the manner in which they're behaving.
And it does. And the thing is, the apparatus, because what Gregory Stanton said was, which was interesting, that powerful entities, may that be governments or media corporations or information outlets, they impact people's perceptions and views of different groups, ethnicities, and smaller entities within society and communities. Now, one of the key things that these people do, they create a story within their heart and their mind that is repeated until it becomes someone's reality. Now, let me share something with you, which was an interesting study. There was some study done on entertainment, and especially movies made in Hollywood, and the depiction of Arabs within their movies for the last over 100, 100 and I think 110, 150
We've seen that
years.
pattern, yes.
Of course we have. And there's been a continuous portrayal of a particular type of Arab, someone who is a womanizer, someone who has no sense of value of life, people who are seen as filthy, people who are seen less human, right? Always conniving, sly, that type of image has been depicted again and again. Now, what movies are and what entertainment is storytelling. Now, if you imagine if the same group of people, a bunch of people have been portrayed in a particular way, less than human. In other words, their essence of humanity has been removed, so they get dehumanized. Then that story is repeated again and again and again. What happens? One loses the sense of empathy towards them.
Yes.
So it's a process, right? No one is born with hate about someone. No one is born by creating a sense of dehuman state of someone or seeing someone.
I think that's one of the questions I would like to ask you as well, because we're seeing this, and it's important that you mention this, that how the process, it may be a long process, but there's an intent in the end of the road. Hollywood does it, Bollywood does it in terms of promoting these narratives that it becomes normalized in the minds of the younger people or those who are watching, right? Depicting what a bottle or what would you call it, like a star looks like, an Arab, a perception of who an Arab is or a Muslim is, or a person from the Middle East, and all of this is contributing towards that as well, towards hate crime. And as you were saying, those narratives are dehumanizing basically a particular section within the community. You're on point. And I guess the other question, because it's the time, we have time, but I just want to make sure that we proceed with our discourse. Is basically hate crime something people are born with, or this is something that they learn and they develop? Can you share a little bit about that?
Now, this is interesting because certain individuals who hold hatred, they probably will say it is within our communities. We have this sense of belonging to our own people.
Yeah.
We should only associate and affiliate with those that we have some sort of akin skin color, language, or similar type of values or beliefs. But guess what? The evidence strongly suggests that hatred is learned rather than inherited. All right. While we look, let's get this straight. While we may naturally notice differences, okay, as human beings, we do notice differences. All right. Like the Holy Quran al-Karim also says that I have created you into groups. For what? For hatred? For looking down upon? No. لِتَعَارَفُوا. So for awareness, so that we know each other, right? So even though there are natural differences, prejudices develops through repeated messages from family, from peers, media, culture, and personal experiences. Now, Sheikh, let me share something with you. One of the key things which I have learned and of course, I have taken from working with different individuals, clients who held very, very strong beliefs about other human beings, may they be people of some particular culture, particular geographical, landmass, may they have been from a particular tribe or faith or religion, is that it underhinges with some sort of external stimuli, right? They might have had an experience which was external, okay?
Yes,
maybe from experience, and what they have done is they have taken that one personal experience and they have generalized it over all people, which may be labeled
it's very
as
dangerous. It's very dangerous.
It's very, very dangerous. And what tends to happen is that over time these beliefs become embedded unless they are challenged. Now, children themselves, Ya Sheikh, are not born hating another people or religion. They don't do that. There's numerous studies on this, Sheikh, right? And that children are playing with each other. They don't have this sense of this child is black, or this child is this, or this child is from this background, or it doesn't matter even what language they speak. In fact,
Yeah.
they have a much more social mindset of inclusivity than disclosing, also instead of removing or pushing people away. Now the thing is, which is very significant, we also know this from the Holy Quran, isn't it? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that all children are born on fitratun salima, right? On a natural disposition. And when they are born into families, right, different families, so they become Christians, they become Jews, they become whatever faith and religion, and they hold onto the philosophies, the values, the beliefs of their surroundings. That's what happens, right? And this is interesting. So they learn attitude by observing the adults around them. This is significant. The encouraging news is that if hatred can be learned, that means it can also be unlearned through education, meaningful relationship, empathy, and honest dialogue. And Sheikh, let me share something with you. Something I love about you and what you've done proactively in the last, I think so, 8 or 9 episodes that you've done on hate crime, is that you have gone out of your way to include individuals from all different backgrounds. You've invited them in. You've tried to hear and listen to their understanding of what hate is and what hate crime is, right?
Yeah.
And even to do that, that's the most powerful thing, because sometimes we only speak from our own comfort zone or our own pain or hurt, and we cannot see someone else's pain and hurt because we can't share that. But what you've done through these episodes, Sheikh, which I think is really powerful, is you've done exactly this. It's education. It's learning. It's not only me who's getting hurt, but others are also being hurt. Let's share, talk, and alleviate this hate from each other.
Yeah. And, I think if so, we can conclude that hate is not something that a child is born with, but rather something that is taught, and it can be unlearned, basically, right? But at the same time, we're saying this, that parents, politicians, teachers, community leaders, there should be this awareness of what they do and what is said and what is presented, because kids look at things or listen to things, and I'll say when they see it's coming from politicians and teachers and educators, people within a particular level in society, they say this is normal. I can say it because I'm hearing my senior politician is saying it, right? Or repeat something that is said, right? A child, for example, may listen to the mom using derogatory, or a father using a derogatory statement about their neighbor, right? And they said, oh, it's normal for them to say that, right? It's very normal because mom and dad is saying it. You could hear the neighbor saying something about their Spanish neighbor, for example. I'm just saying this, right? And that he directed them. Oh, it's normal for me to spew hate at my neighbors that does not look like me, so to speak, right? So I think that we must be vigilant where that is concerned and be mindful where that is concerned. And education, as you say, is quite important. And thank you for sharing that, right? There is a lot of people that live their lives and experience a lot of emotional wounds, right? And I'll say that, when people experience those wounds and it's the needs are unmet, right? That it's not dealt with, so to speak. There is something that can happen in that person's life. It could trigger something. It can trigger hateful ideology. Can you speak to this? Because sometimes people, as you say, experience certain experience in their lives, personal experience, and they're hurt so much, emotionally overwhelmed, right? That raises that anger, that pushes them to do something that is unacceptable, or say something that is acceptable, or come to a conclusion that is not on point, just so to speak. Can you please share some
I will do.
some of your thoughts where that is concerned?
In the last 20 odd years, yeah, Sheikh, working with individuals who hold these views, very extreme views sometimes, right? So what I found is that many people who become attracted to extremists or hateful ideologies are
Mhm.
searching for something deeper.
Yeah.
That could be belonging, it could be identity, purpose, meaning, or it could be significance. Now, experiences such as rejection, humiliation, trauma, neglect, or chronic loneliness can leave emotional wounds, right? That make people susceptible to simplistic answers and groups that promise certainty and acceptance. So what happens is, when they have gone through that trauma themselves, they pain themselves, a loss, for example. Now,
Yeah.
there's a very good friend of mine, In fact, I don't only call him my friend, Yashe. I call him my brother. Now,
Yeah.
this gentleman was part of the EDL, English Defense League, for nearly maybe 5 or 6 years, right? So this is like an activist street movement whose all the slogans and everything were anti-Islamic. That's exactly what they were. He himself, his experience is powerful because he himself, when he tells his story, and I think people should go online and find him. His name is Ivan Humble, right? Now, it's a powerful story of his, of how he got into EDL. Now, he says himself that I had some concerns. I know there were people who had said some very derogatory and belittling things to some of the soldiers that had come back from Afghanistan. He goes, many of them were my friends, okay? And there was a group of people called, ALM, okay? So you have Al-Mahajirun, for example. That's one of the names of these extremist organizations. Now, what they had done is that they were coming and being hateful towards the structure and the system or the soldiers that were coming from there. Now, he goes, some of these people were my friends. Now, he went to his local counselor, okay? So, representative. Okay?
Yeah.
So he goes to him and he goes, I went into the council chamber and I sat down with him and I started to express my concern. He goes, as I started to express my concern, the certain counselor where he's from asked the security to pick me up and tell me to get out of the building, because in his mind I was expressing racist feelings and thoughts, hateful ideology against this group of people. But he goes, what happened was, because I went down the correct pathway of expressing my concerns, I went home. He goes, I'm lonely. I have my own thing going on. You understand? My life broke down. You understand? I didn't have a good relationship with my partner. I didn't have all of that. And he goes, I went online. As I went online, I'm ranting online. And someone contacts me online. Now, it's a powerful story. Because someone contacts me, they reassure me that not to be worried. There are many other people that think in the same way. And guess what? In a few weeks' time, you're going to start EDL, the English Defense League, and you want to be part of it. Now, when you listen to that story, you think to yourself, that's very simplistic, isn't it?
Yeah. It's
But
very
that's
simplistic.
exactly what it...
Yeah. So because what I'm hearing, Imran, for my good friend, is that there are two things. There was a sense of neglect from the authority that he went to, and secondly, from the group, as you call them, extremists, right? They're based in England, right?
That's
Where
right.
they're
Yeah,
based in?
EDL, yeah.
Yeah.
In England, yeah, that's right. The
Yeah.
English Defense League is founded in Luton
Okay.
by none other than someone who's well known in media at the moment, known as Tommy Robinson.
Oh, okay, great. So you're saying, like, so you have here, is it that there were a group of people that was not sensitive towards the reality of what's going on, and then start to mention things to hurt his friends, right? And that is why we must be very mindful of what we say to and understand from other people's perspective, and have meaningful dialogues and not use words of slurs or insults, because words do have lasting lasting impact on people, and
That's
it
right.
pushes them as well to do things, right? Like we see. So there were two things. One, what was said to him that made him very uh, upset and concerned. Then what he did with that he went to the right channel and he was neglected there because they did not take the time to listen to him. And that resulted in what happened.
And that's right, Sheikh, because in his case,
Oh my God.
these extremist groups, look, I worked extensively with gangs and groups on streets for a long time, but being a qualified youth worker. And initially, all groups like this were demonized. Okay. And when you demonize these type of groups, Sheikh, what happens is that you stop engaging with them, you stop dialogue with them.
Yeah.
That's also true. That's also true about extremist organizations and extremist individuals. Because what we do is the moment they become extreme, what do we do as so-called mainstream society? We cut them off. And the moment you cut them off, Yashik, you're creating an echo chamber for them, right? And that echo chamber is not conducive, it's not healthy. In fact, they become even more embedded within the ideology and their philosophy, right?
And we're seeing that playing out now in the world stage, right? In the past, they called a particular tribe in Rwanda that they were cockroaches, and that's what basically prompted them to did the genocide, right? They look at them.
The Hutu and the Tutsis. The Hutu and the Tutsis. Yeah. That's right.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. That word cockroach, it literally means like you kill a cockroach, right? Cockroach has no value. And we're seeing the same thing when it comes to the genocide that is happening in Palestine as well. That they see the Palestinian as less of a human being, and that is what prompted. So it all has to do with the mindset, and the mindset is what rationalizes. The mind is what rationalizes things. So said, this is okay for me to do, so let me do it. And you feel comfortable. You could go to bed at night and basically sleep, right? And say,
that's right.
It's interesting. I'll also ask you, what emotional skills, right, are often missing in people who commit hate crimes, right? Because sometimes when people do this, they're numb. They have a lack of emotion, so to speak, right? They're not sensitive towards someone's emotion. Probably they're aware of what they're going through, but they pay less attention to others. Can you share a few points regarding that? What do you think is missing?
Here, one very significant aspect is that fear is one of the strongest drivers of hatred. Fear. When people feel threatened, okay, whether that may be because of economically, socially, may that be politically, or even culturally. Now, some of the narratives that we are hearing at this moment, right? The white people in England are on the verge of ending. They're going to be outnumbered in the next 50 years. Okay, it's impossible, but that's the narrative that has been thrown out there. And guess what? It is peddled by people in powerful positions, people who have money, who have wealth, okay, and they have some sort of personal agenda, whatever that agenda may be. And the masses are hoodwinked into believing something, that their neighbor is more responsible for their circumstances than the elite and the people in power and position, right?
Yeah.
So the fear factor, the fear is very significant here. And a lot of the structures that have been built, Yashik, they have been built around, fueling this fear, increasing this fear, right? So what fear does? Fear narrows our thinking, okay, and can lead us to exaggerate danger where none exists. Okay. Now, this idea of, Pakistani men are the main groomers in England. There's no doubt. They are groomers. They have been convicted for the last 10, 12 years or even longer. They have gone through the process. Many of them are incarcerated. That is all true. But it's also true that more than 88% of all sexual related crimes are done by middle-aged white men.
So that and they're peddling contrary to that, right?
That's right.
They're-
And that creates, Sheikh, and that creates hate for a small group of people. There's no doubt there are criminals amongst them. And one of the key things, in the nature of my work, I always emphasize, I go, every act, whatever that may be, every crime should be seen through the lens of crime. Okay? The moment you start going after people because of their ethnicity or religion or faith, it becomes very personal. People cannot see the crime, they see the person. Now, when they see the person, they associate that one person and generalize that single behavior of that individual with a group. And the moment you do that, that becomes discriminatory, that becomes hateful, and that becomes, sadly to say, bigoted.
Yeah, and
So,
I think what you're saying makes sense, and our viewers and listeners should be aware of this, because we're seeing it playing out. For example, as I said, that as we're discussing this, there's so much coming to my mind that what's happening in the world right now. And on your point, like for example, the current administration of India, the government of India right now, that you have a group of extreme people that are going out there instilling that fear within the Hindu population, saying that there is something that is called jihad marriage or something of that nature, that
nikah.
that you have, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and they call it jihad. This is a phrase that they coined that is foreign to her faith. That Muslims, right, they go out intentionally to seek out Hindu girls to get nikah with them and then make kids and leave them. And that the marriage is basically not based on love and affection. And I see many young people, because of this trauma that they experience and hate that they experience, some of them resort to suicide, right? And which is right up your alleyway, right? So they can't handle this sense of hate, and so this level of hate that is directed to them, and creating that narrative definitely will help fuel the tension and hate more.
And the significant thing is that it's the way you've said it, Sheikh, is that extremist organization ideologies, okay, they would exploit this by offering simple explanation for complex problems. Now, we're not saying them crimes don't take place. Look, I work in the criminal sector. I work with incarceration. I work with prisoners, people who have been convicted through a process. So I see people who are from different background, different faith, different culture, different ethnicities, right, coming through the door. Now, I'm not going to say this crime is not happening amongst these group of people, or that crime is not taking place in another group of people. What we always do is say, you look through the lens of crime, justice, and law. Okay, law and justice. That's what you look through. You don't look through the lens of a particular ethnicity, a particular religion, or a faith. Because the moment you do that, you're generalizing a single person's behavior, which once again, extremist ideologies do exactly that. They will exploit that. Okay? They will exploit that, something, oh, look at that person. He's from this part of the world. He's from this religion. So because of that, their religion and that part of the world, they do act like this. You go, 1 minute, mate. Yeah. What about the rest of the hundreds of millions of people?
They don't look at it as they don't look at it in isolated cases. They want to generalize. And they probably know that it is an isolated case, but they're just using, they're using that as an excuse to peddle their hate, right? Just
if I may, Sheikh, let's go on. I just want to say this because I think from a religious position is very significant. In the Holy Quran, Allah says in it, Ta'ala, that, oh believers, avoid much suspicion. Yeah. Indeed, some suspicion is sinful. Yeah. Now, suspicion starts from what? Something very minor. Now, the whole Muslim world is being told by God Almighty, don't be suspicious.
Yeah.
Why? Because it can definitely lead towards great sin and ultimate great crime and, of course, hate.
Yes, you're on point. In our religion, al-Islam, I'll say it's a very beautiful faith that teaches us even about our emotional well-being and our thought process, right? It's not just prayers and paying zakat, go to Hajj, but even that deep feeling and how to regulate it, right? And how to prevent greater harm to happen. It's telling us to look inside of us, to ponder inside of us, and be aware what's happening here inside. Because what's happening here can definitely cause things to go south, so to speak, right? It could cause a lot of harm if you don't know how to regulate that and name that emotion, right? It's so important. It's so important to be aware, for Muslims to be aware of that as well. And
That's right.
I want to ask, you know, how important is empathy uh, in preventing prejudice, because you have mentioned this word multiple times. I think the awareness of empathy, or being aware of empathy, is something that is lacking. And a lot of I quite often I'll ask my congregants and people when I go out in public and there is an issue at hand to deal with. One of the questions I often throw, and I leave it like that, I said, for us to understand this impact, the impact of what we see, this hate that we see, just imagine that you were that person that was affected, that it was not X, Y, or Z, but it was you as a person that was in that situation. How would you feel? How would your family feel? And what you would like others to do if you were in that situation? Right? And that's a question I don't answer it, but I pose that question out in public. So open up people's mind to know, to have that understanding of what empathy is all about, right?
That's
What
right.
happened to him or her can happen to you. And I think empathy is quite important. Maybe you can share some thoughts with that is concerned.
I agree. In fact, having empathy is a very significant human trait, right? As a human being, there's much experience that I have not had in life. I've not taken drugs. I don't take alcohol. I have not had, other types of behaviors. I've not been incarcerated for any of my actions or behaviors. But I feel for them as a human being. I feel from a position of that I feel their pain. I understand their loss, right?
Yeah.
As a human being. Now, this is a trait which is very powerful to the human being itself. Now, what's significant here is a healthy identity, right? That's what this is connected to, about the self as well, because a healthy identity generally reduces hatred because it is rooted in confidence, humility, and purpose. Okay, people who know who they are do not feel threatened by those who are different. Now, I know who I am, so I don't feel threatened by them. So what do? I exude empathy, compassion, understanding, and caring for them. Now, as I explained at the start, that I myself, I'm a victim of hate crime.